Hi, this is Laurie Yoon from Dutchy Branch. This is the Alba C2 Lesson 9 vlog. For this lesson, the students are asked to pretend to work for a tourism company that's been chosen to represent Spaceship Two's commercial flights into space. They have to address their space tour plan to the spaceship company's CEO. And the students must go over their plan for the space tour by providing details on 3 sections: the pre-voyage, during the voyage, and the post-voyage. For my class, I've decided to make a slight change to the project prompt, and just because I wanted to better suit my students. So rather than addressing their space tour plan to the spaceship company's CEO, I'm going to ask my students to make an infomercial that addresses potential customers for their commercial flights. And also, they can make their own spaceship name, which could be very fun. So for the applications, I'm going to suggest a couple different apps for this project. I found this app called How to Draw Spaceships. It's by Fun Art Draw, and it's kind of cool because it teaches the students how to draw a variety of different spaceship designs, and it kind of goes step by step on how to do it. So it can help the students brainstorm their own design, and or the students can just pick from that list of designs. Also, if the image is put into full screen display mode, you could just screen capture that image and then cut it out and bring it into another application such as Polaris Presentation, S-Note, ArtFlow Studio, or even Lensoo, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and add in extra information to make it like a proper diagram of the spaceship. So they would have lines coming out of it with the words that describe the different parts and functions of their spaceship. The second application that I would suggest is either ArtFlow Studio, S-Note, or Polaris Presentation. And the function that would go along with these apps is just to create a diagram of the spaceship exterior as well as the interior. This could also be used to draw designs for things such as the amenities within the spaceship, what the windows look like, the food that's going to be offered, sleeping areas, washrooms, things like this. The new application that I'm going to try out is Lensoo Create. So I've used this in some of my other C2 classes that were lower level, and they loved it. So basically, Lensoo Create lets you create a presentation with images, text, and then a recorded speech. So I'm going to ask my students to use this to create their kind of commercial. So the students would take images or other symbols that can represent different parts of their presentation, and then import that into the Lensoo application and record speeches for each page. And then when they go to finally present, they just click play, and then it would roll through just kind of like a commercial would. The other part that I'm going to make a little bit different from the original project prompt will be what I asked my students to do within the 3 sections of the space tour plan. So in the pre-voyage section of the CSLP book, which is the first personal project on page 4, the students are asked to brainstorm about the tour's itinerary and what the tourists must prepare, and a release form that the tourists must sign and agree to before going on the voyage. For my classes, I will be asking the students to design and discuss the exterior of the spaceship. But the itinerary part, I'm going to move to the next section, which is the voyage section of the presentation. In the voyage section of the CSLP book, that would be the second personal project on page 7. The students would brainstorm the amenities, safety, and comfort level on the ship. In my classes, I'm going to ask the students to draw diagrams or provide images of the interior of the spaceship, also the safety features that are on the spaceship. But like I already mentioned, I'm going to ask them to discuss the itinerary of the space tour. So they would have to describe things like the main events of the trip, the planets that they plan to visit, any space-related activities that the Voyagers would be involved in, and so on. Now finally, in the post-voyage section of the CSLP book, which is the collaborative project on page 12, the students brainstorm about the after effects of the space tour. So I'm going to ask the students to explain potential negative effects on the body, and I'm going to provide them with kind of a list of information in a media card and show them pictures of some side effects or after effects, such as muscle atrophy, the lowering of cardiovascular functions, decreased production of red blood cells, balance disorders, weakening of the immune system, and so on. And the students would then have to come up with an interesting or creative way that their tourism company would help these voyagers deal with any of those potential issues. As usual, I will have a task sheet. The first role would be the introduction and pre-voyage, and in the intro speech, they would have to combine some topical expressions and showcase expressions, have a really clever hook to attract their clients for a space tour. Secondly, they'd have to create a spaceship speech, and again incorporate some topical expressions in here, describe the exterior of the spaceship, and I've outlined different steps on what applications I would suggest for the students to use and how to use them. Also, they're going to have to outline what the tourists should prepare before going on the trip, like the physical training and any emotional training, and also the terms and conditions that the tourists would have to agree to before leaving, which would be the release form. They would take all of their final images and diagrams, screenshot those, and Bluetooth or Wi-Fi direct those to Role 3's tablet, which would be the final presentation tablet. For the second role, it's called the voyage role. They'll have to make a speech about the voyage. Again, some topical expressions, but here they're going to have to describe the interior of the spaceship and include images and diagrams to show and to explain why their spaceship is safe. So any technology or emergency protocol that they have on board. Finally, the main events of their tour, so where they're going to be going, what planets they'll be visiting, and the space-related activities that they'll be involved in. Same thing for Role 2 as Role 1, where they would have to make diagrams on an application of their choice and then screenshot those final images and send that to the final tablet to create the final Lensoo presentation. Role 1 and Role 2, after they create their speeches, they will be recording their speeches in the Lensoo Create app for the different sections of their presentation, which would correspond to the images that they created. Finally, the post-voyage and conclusion role, so creating a speech discussing any potential negative effects on the body after going on a space tour and how the company proposes to help alleviate these conditions or deal with these problems. This person would have to give a conclusion speech, which then would outline the different members in the group and the roles that they played in the presentation. Finally, this tablet would have the final Lensoo Create app commercial. So yeah, that's my plan for this week's project, and I will let you guys know how it all went and any changes that I made along the way. Good luck!